Well, welcome everybody. We'll get cooking, and this will wind up being recorded anyway, so the folks that get here a little bit later, they can just catch up with us, right? Does that sound like a plan? All right, here we go. Well, welcome everybody to the EPA eStudy data collection, compilation, communication, reporting for project and studies. We appreciate you guys joining us. We will have folks here from multiple places, including USDA, FDA, other folks around EPA. We appreciate everybody joining us today. Love to have you guys. We know there's a lot of things cooking. I don't know about you guys, but it's crazy freaking hot here. How hot is it down in Tampa, John?
Well, I'm actually up here now in the area visiting my daughter and stuff, so it's cooler down in Tampa.
You should have brought that coolness up here. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Telling you. It's crazy. Well, we got Daniel Thompson with eStudy. He's the project manager there. How you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing good, Dave. How about yourself?
Fantastic. John Dombrowski with Deepwater Point Associates. Used to be what? Where did you used to work?
I used to be when I retired last April of 2024, I retired as the director of the Office of Compliance, which within a week, my EPA colleagues know where that is.
Fantastic. Well, we're glad that you're here. I'm the host of this Gov Brief session. And real quick, you're not going to believe this, but this session is going to include vendor product information, right, Daniel?
That's right.
And it's not endorsed by, this came from GSA, by the way, John. If you're wondering if this is official or not, it is actually absolutely official, not endorsed by any agency, and it's for informational purposes. There's a little typo right there. We're going to fix that before the end of this. And participation by you is voluntary. It's not a commitment to buy from anybody. Now you can participate, and including in participation, you can tell us what would make this the best briefing ever. Eugene says, it helped me understand data platforms. I think we'll deal with a little bit of that. How about that, Daniel?
That's absolutely right.
And Megan says, provide real, implementable, and sustainable solutions that are for truly large data. We're going to talk about that, guys?
I think so.
I think so. Derek, it shed a greater light on data management and collection for best practices. Absolutely. Right, guys?
Yes.
Nailed it.
And Caitlin just wants to learn something. That's what I see. Just to learn, opportunity to learn something. And Steven, he just wants to laugh about it. So you can put it in the chat. Let us know what would make this the best briefing for you. And also, if you have anything for us to address, we want this to be interactive. We love, if you have something you'd like to chat about, you can raise your hand as well. But Linda says applicable quality assurance requirements. I actually asked Linda yesterday. She's not here yet. So if she pops up here, I want her to explain and make sure we meet this, okay, guys? Because she actually heads up quality assurance for her department. So we'll talk to her a little bit. Eugene, data sharing during an incident response. Love that question. Time-sensitive information and data with response partners. And I think if you guys want to expound upon that while we're doing this, I want to make sure we hit Eugene and Megan. Security requirements for EPA and design an agile data management system for quickly accessing and storing. I think that kind of weaves into whether or not your product is actually up and ready to integrate. Does that sound like the plan? Right, guys?
Sounds good.
And Derek, very interested in aspect of the study design protocols. We will talk a lot about that, won't we?
Absolutely.
Because if we do this right design-wise, then what happens?
Get good data on the back end.
Oh, my man. Good data on the back end. So we're gonna talk a little bit about how eStudy came to be. We're going to understand about how eStudy can help, because that's what we're here for, right? We want to figure out how we can help solve problems. Right, John?
That's correct.
And one of the ways you can help solve the problems is actually use a pilot to say, hey, can it solve my problem with a particular program, with a particular project, with a particular research, and tying into eEnterprise for the environmental principles, right? Environment principles, right?
That's right. I'll be talking about that.
I love that, because I really want to learn more about eEnterprise as well. It's more than just data collection, but data collection is part of that, right, John?
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah.
So as we're getting to know folks, where are you from? You can pop that into the chat as well. And then let us know what in the world made you decide to sign up and be here today. Do you have a current data collection need? Are you in management and just want your data to work? Everybody should have an amen on that one. I'm tired of scrubbing bad data. There should be a lot of folks in that one, right, John?
That's correct.
There's bad data all over the place, right? And how about I'm in procurement and want to know about eStudy, or maybe you just wanted to say hi to John. Oh, look at that, John. Somebody wanted to say hi to you. Isn't that nice? And if you've been to a GovBrief session before, welcome back. We really appreciate you guys joining us. We love, love, love working with you folks. Inside the government, as well as folks that are working with you all the way around. And while folks are answering this, tell us a little bit about iAdvantage. Who wants to talk about iAdvantage for just a minute?
I'll take that. So,
all right.
So thanks for the intro, Dave. So This is all about iAdvantage software. So iAdvantage software is a software company that was founded in 2003, many, many years ago, and was founded out of a necessity from our sister company, Global Agricultural Development Corporation. That's a mouthful, I know. But basically our scientific team, was doing everything on paper. They were collecting all the data. They were managing everything on paper. They saw the need and actually developed a solution in-house. And in 2003, we became an incorporated company and started licensing our software. And from there, it's grown. And we got 30 years of data capture management, and reporting. A lot of the data that's been collected in the actual platform itself supports EPA and USDA regulated studies. So I'm sure there's some people that have been to these briefings that have seen some data from the product. We are a small business, and we also are a GSA schedule holder. And I forgot to mention we're founded and headquartered in Cary, North Carolina.
Yep. Right in the triangle, right?
That's right. Smack dab in between Durham and Raleigh. So
I just want to say that a lot of times that folks that come here, they're like, I didn't even know that what I was reading came from a report from your program, right? They're actually using it. They just don't even know it.
Yeah.
So
that definitely could be a case. That's right.
That's pretty cool. All right, I'm popping into the chat. There's the session docs, and if everybody could do me a favor, just click on that to make sure that it lands on something that looks like this, and that it works. If somebody give you a thumbs up that it actually works for the folks that are attending, because I think it works for us, but I want to make sure thumbs up if it's working for you guys, that you actually can get to those docs, because every once in a while Zoom can be weird. Just saying. Everybody good? And while we're at it, I'm going to give you another 3, 2, 1 to answer this iAdvantage while you're here today. Oh, there you go. We got the last one. We got 78%. We only have just a few wallflowers this time. Love it. So here's what we got here, guys. 25% have a current data collection need. 13% say, hey, I want my data to work. 13% tired of scrubbing data, and then want to know more about eStudy. And the number one reason why people are here, John, they would like to say hi to you. How you like that?
Love it. Hello, everyone.
That's all right. We do love participation. Do me a favor. Did we see a thumbs up yet on anybody saying that this is working? Are you able to get to these in the chat? Everybody getting those? Just want to make sure they work before we jump too far.
Got a thumbs up.
There we go. Got a thumbs up. Fantastic. All right. So first of all, we love interaction. It's not a crazy number of people here, so we can unmute and we can have dialogue, because that's what we like the most, don't we, John? And then when we talk about, if you have something that you don't want everybody and their mother to see, like it's a secret or something, send it to info@iAdvantage software. That's going to be at the bottom the whole time. And if you have that, that'll make its way to Daniel and make its way to John, and they'll be able to solve your problems all without anybody knowing about it. How about that? So let's talk about, as we're getting into this, how did we get to the situation where we are? Because there's a lot of data out there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think all of us in this room at one point have dealt with data, whether it's your main job or, you've had to do something, a one-off task. But, when it comes to data, if you don't think about the larger picture at the front end, you're going to create a lot of issues for either yourself or somebody else. And, I can speak to the majority of these. None of these are fun when you're dealing with data, and you're, especially if you're dealing with tons of data, it just, amplifies the issues that you have. So, we've listed some of the challenges that you may face with lots of data, whether it be collaboration issues, dealing with data from multiple sources, having no data standards in place, that's becoming more and more common. We were seeing that, especially when you're having data from multiple input sources, they're not unified, and it's just becoming a headache to clean. These different data sources a lot of times have disparate goals and objectives, so that definitely doesn't help. Duplicated efforts. This is one of the ones that you see actually most common. And it actually doesn't create a problem with the actual data itself, but it's duplicated efforts. It's wasting time and money. So that's always going to be an issue. Another one is problem sharing data across state and other stakeholders. So, regardless of who those stakeholders are, you want to be able to share the data and make sure that everybody has access to it. And one that I think is really key as well is being able to electronically report. I'm a Gen Zer myself, so I don't remember as much the days of paper, but seeing people do things on paper still to this day, and I'm not calling anybody out, but I can't see how you can get the job done doing that. So I think it's really important to modernize systems if they're still being done on paper to make them more efficient. So all these combined, everybody should have experience some of these if you deal with data, and hopefully we can go through some things today that will remedy those. So
I can't imagine that almost everybody's had situations in every one of these, especially dealing with EPA. And one of the things with the eEnterprise, right, John, is they're looking to solve almost all of this, right? And that's the whole idea with the eEnterprise. So we got here, we all have the same challenges, right? If we're collecting data. And so what we're going to ask next is how do you manage that? So if you're managing your data, so you have data in your warehouse, right? Is it in a database? Is it you're exporting it to Excel? Are you using some kind of custom management software? Or be honest, ladies and gentlemen, be honest, whether you're still using paper or notebook, because I actually have mine right here. So there you go. So, and data comes in many forms and sources, right, guys? So let's talk about what we're talking as far as creating what we want to be doing, right? We have to create a strategy before we create something that actually exists yet, right? So let's take us through how we do this right, guys. How do we do it?
Yeah, so first on the list is to, if available, select a project study management platform that does all of these best practices for you. That's going to be the most obvious solution. And hopefully in just a bit, we're going to start talking about the eStudy platform that we've developed ourselves to handle all of these circumstances. Outside of that, some more best practices would be to spend a good bit of time designing what you're going to be collecting. A lot of times people just want to get the data collected and they rush into the actual collection and don't thoroughly think through or do peer review. With a lot of the scientists, especially if you have any sort of protocols involved, that really increases the data quality because it makes sure that you've thought these things out, you've had someone review your protocol, and it really gives you better results on the back end. Another one is to keep your requests simple. Don't leave anything up for interpretation because, if you haven't realized by now in your life that no two people think alike, then you've got some learning to come. So, keeping them as simple as possible is going to be a benefit to you in the end. So, also, think about how to protect this data once you collect it, especially if it's, personal information. Make sure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that data is protected once it's in your hands. And another one is to do your best to make sure that you are able to verify the data once it's collected, because a lot of times there is no second try. So just be very thoughtful with the process.
And to your point, with no second try and having clean data, that's why there's millions of dollars being spent on AI on the back end trying to clean up stuff, right? So real quick, I'm going to end this poll in 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Last minute stragglers? All right, here we go. Watch this, guys. What's the shock here? That's 56% export to Excel. We already knew what the answers were going to be, didn't we, gentlemen? We already knew because we've talked about this a bunch of times. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to focus on how you can actually, if you take a look, to collect and verify and keep that data clean. Very difficult to do in Excel if you release it, if it's all being done in Excel, right? If it's being managed in Excel. So
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why we're here, right? And that we're trying to figure out how to make it better, right? One of the things here that I want to point out, and I've learned a little bit more about this just by talking with Daniel and John, and that is scientific methodology has been used in this process since you started. Because you started with scientists, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, that is the root of the platform itself. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about this, and Daniel's going to talk about an overview, right? So this is what you want to do no matter what. I don't care what platform you use. We will be talking about eStudy because that's what you guys do. But this applies to everybody. To do it right, you want to do it this way.
Right. Yeah. So at the core of our product, and it should be the core of any product or process that you use for collecting data, the first step should be to define the problem or data requirement. It goes without saying, but we want to put it down just to make sure that you really think through what it is you're trying to prove, right? Number two would be to design a process to answer the problem. Again, a lot of your time is going to be spent here making sure that you think all of the edge cases through and making sure that you're going to get the results that you want. Number three is going to be to manage the process while it's in process. And then obviously, as well as that, is to collect the data itself. And then lastly, you have to manage, review, and communicate the data itself. So, what good is that data if you're not able to review it and communicate it and report it out to stakeholders? So this is the generic outline that we've come up with. And so assuming that you already have defined the problem that you're trying to solve, the step one, like I said, most of your time is going to be spent here in the designing phase. In this phase, you want to make sure that you're maximizing creativity and you're trying to minimize all the repetitive tasks, especially if you have a scientist having to, sort and format Word documents, things like that. You want to make sure that they're spending the most time possible on the science itself. And one key factor of our platform itself, and this goes without saying, but you want to be able to quickly create studies themselves that have all of the supporting information available to the data collector so they can see exactly what it is that you're trying to solve so they can give you the best data on the back end. And a third item to keep in mind is make sure in your design phase that you're designing the actual study, the security of the data itself, and make sure that it's protected once the data is done being collected.
So if you talk about your creativity, because you don't want to keep scientists from being able to report, but you want to make sure that you can adapt that creativity and still lock it down, right? Because otherwise you're going to have anybody can say anything if it's free form. Right.
Yeah. So we have a method of making variables that the data collectors enter in and making sure that you give a specific outline of what they're supposed to put in. So if it's a number, how many decimal places, things like that. Or even if you have a selection that you want to give them, a drop-down list, making sure that you define those so you don't get, those edge case answers as well. So making sure that everything is uniform is very important.
Because that's what makes the data, is that from the out, because if you have the design working, then the input is easily transferable to usable data on the back end.
Right. And if you can enforce that on the front end and enforce that through your good design, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier once you bring the data together, because that you're going to get A through Z versus something, completely from left field. Which is one of the biggest challenges with spreadsheets, right? Right.
And so that gets us to the next question. We already know what the number one answer is going to be. So the question is, what's the number two going to answer going to be? Because we know that in most instances we've found this, and we've done a few of these, right, Daniel, where we've looked at and pulled information and talked to folks from EPA and other areas, right? So we know, and we do want to know from folks here too, right? What are you using? How do you collect your data now? It's being disseminated somehow, and then you're collecting that information from scientists on anything. This could be studies. This could be any
surveys,
type of
whatever it is, and
research, right?
Yeah, and the one important thing to mention is that we're we're not trying to shame anybody for using spreadsheets. Everyone uses spreadsheets. The
Everybody
spreadsheets
does.
are, the best thing since sliced bread. But, there's limitations there on how much you can control the data from Excel. Even Excel wizards are limited on what you can do to control the data. So, they get the job done, but it requires more manual effort from the individuals.
Absolutely.
Dave, let me explain that second question a little bit to some of the viewers, because they may not be 100% familiar with that program. The Good Laboratory Practices program is actually a program, an EPA program. It's administered by EPA at headquarters, where large industries, your Monsantos, your Dows, BASF, are actually using eStudy to report their lab data to OPP for the Good Laboratory Practices program, all right, and the GLP program. And then the OECA, the Office of Compliance, does an audit based on that data in the lab itself that the data was generated in. So industry is already using eStudy to report data to EPA for an EPA program. And that's really what we're referencing there. Do you have any involvement in that program? Do you have use for that data?
And with that in mind, as they're filling this out, even if you're using Excel, because we're seeing that most people use Excel to collect the data. That's not a surprise. But if you have the ability, either through business processes, right? You can control it by business processes, but the uniformity is important. So tell us why this is so critical from your perspective, Daniel, on the design being able to drive this part.
Yeah, so the design, like I said earlier, is probably the most critical piece. But once you get to collecting, you want to keep in mind certain objectives and certain things to keep an eye on. So, part of the process and part of the downside of Excel is there is no way for you to monitor this data collection as it's happening. But if you have a platform that you're able to monitor things in real time, you're able to, gain a hold of data if there's any anomalies, or if you see people entering things that they shouldn't be. There's going to be a way for you to intervene. So keep in mind, monitoring and making sure that things are looking uniform and consistent as it's being done, so that you can contact them if there are things that they can correct. Keep in mind that you may need to be collecting data from multiple geographies. This isn't always going to be a requirement, but if it is, make sure that you have a good way to do this. Also, keep in mind having an offline capability. We're so used to everything being online nowadays, but there's also going to be a need a lot of times for having offline capability, especially if the data is being collected in some sort of field scenario offsite. Make sure that there's a way for data to be collected in a passive manner, so that don't lose any of that valued data. So another thing is while data is being collected, make sure you're monitoring it to make sure that the data is remaining in compliance with any sort of agency requirements. I'm sure that there's countless ones out there to keep in mind. So whatever you have to abide by, make sure that you're monitoring for that to remain compliant. Another one is getting a little more technical. Having an ability to import data not only from a manual standpoint, but from different systems, importing data through APIs, manual import, export, or giving the individual the ability to upload or even download data directly is also going to be really important. And you just don't have that kind of ability with Excel.
It was interesting because Linda was talking about that from a QA standpoint of compliance with agency requirements, because every study will follow some sort of compliance format, right, John? There's got to be a reason they're doing it.
Yeah, that's correct.
So yeah, I just want to make sure we answer Linda. Linda has not landed up here yet. I did talk with her yesterday, so I want to make sure she gets her stuff answered, because she's probably going to be watching this. All right, here we go. So I do want to share these results real quick, and then I have the next poll. Hey, this is not new. I love the fact that there's folks that are using a survey tool in some form or fashion. We've learned that sometimes that are actually SharePoint being used as well. So there's things that you're using. Fantastic, right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's other methods that data is collected, but yeah, spreadsheets are nice to do things quickly, but they're not always going to be your friend once you pull data from multiple sources together. It's going to be a lot of manual effort.
Yep. And then once we have the data, we need to report it and communicate that to the folks, right? So this is where it gets interesting, because we didn't have anybody do paper this time, Daniel. So you probably shamed them.
That's an improvement. That's an improvement. Yeah, or I scared them. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. We're not here to judge anybody. I know that.
It's so true. So what we're trying to do is identify the issues that are happening, and these are happening different ways within different parts of the agency, right, John?
That's correct.
Different folks have different ways and reasons. And then depending on your reporting structure, or depending on who you have to reach, right? Because sometimes you have to reach internal people. You got to do internal things to be able to validate the data, right? Right, John?
You got to have the internal communications first before you go external.
That's right. Sure. That's right. So as we're looking at that, let's talk a little bit about that reporting, Daniel, and what happens once. Now we're getting more involved in how you guys do it, right? This is more involved in how eStudy does it,
right?
But you want a system. No matter what system you have, you want that system to do these things.
Yeah, you definitely are going to want some sort of automated way to get the data out, to format the data, to bring the data together, and preferably, like it says here, the ability to create report templates. And what we mean by that is have a standard format that you report out on a consistent basis, because especially within the agencies, there's probably a specific format that your boss wants to see this level of data. So if you can just create that template once and then run this report on a continuing basis with updated data, with new data, that kind of thing, it's going to decrease the amount of time that you're having to spend manually creating these reports. So having a system to do that, pays for itself tenfold pretty quickly. Having the ability to generate different levels of data for different stakeholders. So, that your upper management, they're going to want to see a very high level of that data, and then having the ability to generate reports with entire lists of the entire database is going to be important as well. So another one is reporting in different formats. Not everyone likes looking at, a table and a spreadsheet. They want to see, a PDF. They want to see, they want to see tables, they want to see images, they want to see all these things brought together. So really having a way to do this in an automated way is going to in the end save you time and money. So
when you think about that, right? So, and then some of this is external coming into the EPA, like you're doing now. Some of your clients that you mentioned earlier, pick one of those for just a second and explain the kind of stuff that's coming into EPA that then gets disseminated based on what EPA wants to see, right?
Right. So there, within the Office of OPP, there's certain studies that have to be done to get a pesticide registered within the U.S. So these sponsor companies have to conduct these studies in the field, collect the data. A lot of them use our platform to do so. And then they've created these report templates to match what the EPA would like to see reported out for regulatory purposes. And at a click of a button, they can summarize all their lab data, all of their field data, and stick it into these reports to submit to the EPA for final submission. So it saves them so much time and money in the end. It's invaluable to them. So having a way to do that, in a situation similar to that is going to be crucial.
So here's how most of the folks, 71%, use email with spreadsheets with raw data. So they're transitioning that data back and forth, and this can create a problem with data integrity too, right? Right.
Yeah, we're not saying that anybody has any malintent, but at the same time, especially any QA people that we have in here, you can't help but wonder, if one little tweak happens, then your whole data set can be questioned.
Yep. And I have personally screwed up spreadsheets with sorting. Just saying. Not anybody else here. Not going to say. It's just me personally. All right. So as we summarize this for everybody, this is pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So just in summary, what the different phases that we went through. First, you want to spend lots of time on designing whatever kind of data collection, whether it's a study, whether it's a program, whatever your objectives are. You want to make sure that you think it out and you want to design it and spend lots of time making sure that you get the quality data out on the back end. And secondly is going to be executing that design in the collection phase. And then last but not least, third, you're going to be reporting this data out, getting the value out of the data that you spent so much time designing and collecting. And then number 4 would be just to repeat the process, rinse and repeat, right?
Yep. So part of this all revolves around what EPA is doing, right, John, with eEnterprise.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So again, I just want to back up again real quick. Again, I'm John Dombrowski. I'm retired from EPA last May. I am thrilled to be here. I'm actually happy. This is kind of like a homecoming. I can come back and talk to my EPA colleagues. So I'm thrilled about this, and also a little nervous talking in front of you guys. But anyhow, right now, what am I doing here? Well, first off, I do work for Deepwater Point Associates, and Deepwater is a consulting firm that a company like iAdvantage would help them with their products and help them navigate, going forward. So they have experts from all across the federal government. So I was introduced with iAdvantage and their team, and I started looking at eStudy. And at first I was looking at it, I got briefings on it and demos, and then I started diving into it more. And let me tell you, I wouldn't be here today if I really didn't believe in eStudy and what it can do. It's a very, very powerful platform. And it's not just about data collection. eStudy is about management of the data from beginning to the end, right? That's also managing it and seeing the data as it's collected real time, all the way to the reports and whatever else you're going to use the data for. It is not just a data collection tool. It is a management tool. Okay. Now, eEnterprise. Why eEnterprise? When I was going through and looking at eStudy, the light bulb went on. I said, this platform is so nimble, very flexible. It really starts pointing or addressing towards the principles of eEnterprise. I think everyone online should know what eEnterprise is. It's eEnterprise for the Environment, consortium of EPA, states, and tribal leaders. Janet McCabe is the co-chair, for example, on eEnterprise. eEnterprise, the bottom line about eEnterprise is it's process improvement. Okay, regardless if it's IT or not, but there's a lot of focus on the IT because that's where you could get a lot of bang for the buck. Okay, and here's where eStudy comes in. It really captures the spirit and the principles of eEnterprise, and that hit me, and I was like, oh wow, this is great. So why think about this? Well, everything that Daniel laid out about the collection and how to design your study is very critical and important. But I'm going to beg my EPA colleagues here to take a step back and look at the big picture. Make sure the platform you're selecting and you want to do your study on is in alignment with the principles of eEnterprise. And, there could be other initiatives too, maybe within your office, in your AA ship that has certain principles that they're looking for. Make sure you're capturing those principles from a big picture standpoint. That's what eEnterprise does for us. It guides us, right? It's EPA, states, and tribes saying, here is how we want to improve processes. They laid it out, and eStudy hits those points. Let's see here. We could go through some of them. It promotes collaboration, which is critical in any study, right at the beginning. State and tribal partners, maybe it's academic partners. It significantly improves the process of managing data. Remember, I talked to you, this is a management tool, right? It's not just a data collection tool. It promotes the development of open data standards, right? You could, at the beginning, identify the data standards that you want with your partners. Again, collaboration on what you want to use and implement. And it also promotes shared services. And then it is very customer-centric. It's a very customer-centric approach because, as Danielle mentioned, you have major industries providing data to EPA, and they're providing it in the format that they want. Again, you're allowing the customer to design how they want to report out for their business line, and also for the environmental agency receiving that data. Again, it's very flexible and it can accommodate that. Let's go to the next slide.
Yep.
Examples, and I think I hit on some of these already, but there's a large volume of data. We've been talking about this whole webinar. You have things like the participatory science, right? Citizen science and the data that's being collected by that's a huge initiative within EPA. This provides capacity and consistency for that data to be collected. Again, it's process improvement. So you're able to efficiently design your study and your data collection study and streamline it. Again, eEnterprise is about process improvement. And then it prevents and eliminates any backlogs. You don't have, you're waiting for data to come in over here from this other platform and then from over here, from this study over here to combine them. No, you could do it all completely within eStudy. And it would eliminate any backlogs or delays that you may have. Let's go to the next slide.
Yes, sir.
It avoids duplication of efforts. Daniel hit on that. And that's a big one. Why collect data over here when it's being collected over here separately? Let's put it all into the same platform and you have it collect at one time. It accomplishes, and it's important to have good data for the environmental goals, right? So you're designing your study with your environmental goals or objectives in mind, and you're also including the principles of eEnterprise, for example, for how a solid, good study could be designed and implemented. And then, yes, you want to achieve environmental results. You want to show what the results are, either good or bad. It's still the results that you're trying to go after and capture, right? And you want to be able to show that and show the progress that you may have made within a study. eStudy, you can do that. You can see the results as they're coming in real time. You could start seeing how your measures are starting to stack up. As far as doing, environmental results, you can see where the study is going as it's happening within eStudy. It is a complete management tool, and it really checks the box for all the eEnterprise principles that they're trying to promote. So I really saw the connection there. And I strongly urge my colleagues of EPA, go ahead, call iAdvantage, get a demo, talk about this see how these principles come out further through a more in-depth discussion with Daniel and his colleagues over at iAdvantage. But it really does, in the end, give you clean, reliable data that can be shared and easily exchanged across partners.
And that's what eEnterprise is looking to do anyway.
That's
right? So that's the whole idea. And that's, and we do have some examples
here. Right? Yeah, I'm not going to read through this whole entire list, but it's not just about collecting data from a lab, per se. It could be a study related to another effort or initiative within EPA. And yeah, you'd maybe taking field samples or some data that you collect in from the field, but it's not a research study. It's more of what's going on in the field study, trying to identify the environmental problems a lot more efficiently and quickly, right? So you have the citizen science, participatory data, again, of course, the research studies, developing regs. I used to develop regs with an EPA. I know that for some regulation development, you need to have you have to go out and collect data. You have to do a study on what you're looking to, control the regulations. eStudy can really help in your reg development and collection of that data. So you have good sound data to base the regulation on. And then identifying environmental problem areas. And recently, EPA, I was identifying where's all the PFAS contamination from across the country, right? It was a unregulated contaminant of concern. Well, eStudy is a great tool to be able to do that, to start taking in this data from various sources and trying to put it all in one place to help identify environmental problems and unregulated contaminants. And then, of course, you could use it for sampling data, collecting compliance data, and then emergency response. If you're out there and you're on site and there's an emergency and you're starting to collect all the field data, and then you may have a state out there collecting field data as well. Well, eStudy could harmonize that data collection, right, between you and the states and put it all in one place with data standards that everybody's going to work from. So there's a lot to eStudy. There's a lot of potential, and I really urge my EPA colleagues to give this consideration, reach out to iAdvantage, and have further discussions with them about the eStudy, maybe a pilot, whatever. So that's what guys, I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in it, and I wouldn't want to steer you guys wrong. Trust me, I still love EPA and the mission that you guys are doing, and I wouldn't put anything in front of you that I didn't think was not worth your time.
There you go. Love that, man. And that's what I love. And we don't get an opportunity to do this a lot of times with folks that are former agency folks. Every once in a while we do, and it's awesome. And in your experience with the EPA, when you were dealing with the eEnterprise, what was the most important thing that you found from the folks asking questions of you to support eEnterprise? For you, John.
Trying to think of that question. The strength of eEnterprise is really bringing the state, tribal, and EPA partners together to identify the process improvement. And that is really the heart and soul of eEnterprise. And eStudy fits that bill perfectly when it comes to managing studies from, again, start to finish. So it's a collaboration and, the discussion, but arriving as to, this needs improvement, and we could do that.
All right. So there's some things that we were talking about to address earlier, and I don't see Linda. Oh, Linda is here. Hey, Linda, hang on one second. I'm gonna pop you, give you the ability to talk for just a second, because you actually asked this question, and we talked about it yesterday for just a minute. But because I'm not in the EPA and I don't do QA, what are you looking? Can you unmute for just a second, Linda, just to make sure we hit this right? What are some of the biggest challenges that you see in making sure that the standards and guidance is done the way that it should be? You there, Linda? I see you unmuted. Zoom, you gotta love these live things. And Derek, if you want to pop open too, let me see. Go ahead, Linda. Can you talk? Is your mic working? I don't think so. How about you, Derek? Can you talk about study protocols? Did we meet that for you, for the aspects of the study protocols for you?
Yeah, this is Derek. I think you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it did pop on. Yeah, I think you all covered it. What I was kind of looking at, and I'm in the Office of Water, and I don't necessarily deal with direct implementation of direct program, but what I wanted to see was some ways to kind of look at how promise agencies are collecting, information. If there's anything where one is having a conversation, just to know how they're going about doing it. I think that's what I was trying to get,
Sure.
with regard to this conversation. I think, some of the paradigm you kind of put forth was definitely interesting, and I was definitely interested in seeing, how that and some of the kind of pillars of that to make sure that, once you're having, like I say, once you're having a conversation with someone, you're knowing where they're going or what they should ultimately be saying. Right. So I think that was, extremely important. So you did hit those particular points.
Awesome. And it is, so you're doing water, like you said, right? So when you do what are you trying to find out about the water, and how are you collecting that data now?
So I'm a project manager on the compliance monitoring data portal. So what that is promise agencies, report through us, not to us, because they have primacy. But what we're doing now is we're kind of going through a redesign, and there are just different methods by which they can submit their sample data. Obviously, we don't see it. It goes directly back to them for their compliance determination efforts. But it's just one of those things where it's kind of understanding some of the aspect of like how one collects data and some of the things that you may be able to do to kind of broaden the ability for them to do that data collection.
You want to talk to that, Daniel? Some of that seemed like, hey,
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's always going to be a challenge when you're bringing in data in different formats, and especially if you're allowing them to submit in different formats or submit different data sets. So, having a system or having a way to kind of enforce what the data looks like when it comes in is going to make your guys' life a lot easier. So I don't know if that's part of, the discussion that you were talking about, but, if there's any possibility of a follow-up call, or if you want to shoot us an email or anything like that, we'd love to have, a more in-depth conversation regarding your specific case. And but yeah, we'd love to talk more and kind of show you, some of the capabilities of the system.
Yeah, I think at this point we actually do have standards, but yeah, I think that obviously when you're pretty much the funnel for promise agencies, you do get a lot of requests, and your ability to be able to process those requests and your flexibility really depends on the tools you have available to you.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's very true.
Very true. All right, man. Anything else you need, Derek?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
There you go. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for being there. And Linda, if you want to type in that, I know we talked QA yesterday. We do want to make sure that we direct folks, as EPA actually has the guidances out there, and I'll make sure we get that to everybody as well. Hey there, she says hi. So awesome. So any other questions before we bounce? I want to make sure that, number one, we talked about data sharing. We didn't really dive into incident response for Eugene. I don't see Eugene right there right this minute. And I appreciate that. I'm going to share that with everybody from Linda, because she's sending stuff to us behind the scenes. And I'm going to use that right now to point it to everybody else. It's EPA/quality. Not hard. All right. So let's talk about incident response. What does incident response mean, John?
So in this case, in the context is in the Office of Emergency Management, you may have an environmental accident, disaster, whatever. I'm thinking recently of that train wreck in Ohio, right? Mm-hmm. So during any incident or response, you're going to be collecting data. You're going to be collecting data on potentially the air contaminants. You're going to be on water, right? Maybe the soil. You're going to be taking samples to see what kind of deposition there was around the soil. And then that will be EPA. And then the states may be doing the same, right? The state will come in and do something similar, or another emergency response team. eStudy gives a platform for that data to be collected in a common way, right? Data standards, data sharing, just a common platform that all parties involved can get on and say, yeah, okay, this is how we're going to do it. So when they're out taking their own samples, they have a standard format that they can do it, and it's readily accessible to all the parties. And that's one of the big things about emergency response, is having that data right there and ready and available the moment you need it, so you can make the appropriate decisions.
And that, when you're dealing with an incident, it really creates a problem, right? Because that you have a lot of pressure to solve that problem, right? So Linda's saying also applying applicable QA is less of a challenge and more of an opportunity for communication. Imagine that, Linda, communicating, right? Each program office and region has a QA manager, and our contact info can be found by going to the site I just sent. Fantastic. And it's important, because we talked about that a little bit earlier before you got here, Linda, is that any of those requirements and standards apply based on what that study could be, right? Right, John? It could be multiple QA type of requirements, and including making sure we keep stuff private, which goes to what Megan's talking about, security requirements, and making sure that we have things locked down, right?
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about eStudy, is you can be flexible enough that you can have open data, if you will, and then you can have some closed data that you need to manage internally. Yep. But the QA, of course, you want the QA of the data to meet the goal, your end goal objective. And really, eStudy goes a real long way in doing that. That's for sure.
Well,
Cool.
Another thing too I've seen, Dave, recently is people are realizing more and more that QA is not only just a back end thing. It's it's a group that you should include in that most important design phase, because a lot of times they can see problems before they arise in your design and say, hey, you need to fix this or you're going to have issues, because they are the ones that end up seeing all these issues right on the back end. So a lot of times they're quick to recognize, right? So I think Linda's got a great point.
And that's part of that whole process improvement. Building it in.
And design, like you said, Daniel, too, design, You do it right, you incorporate those standards and requirements and guidance on the front end, and it automatically translates through the process, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Any more questions before we get you guys out of here? We'll make sure we don't miss anybody. Anybody? Think pie. Planning, implementation, and evaluation. Planning is the biggest part of the pie. I love it. Thank you, Linda. She's sending stuff behind the scenes. I already read all those. All right, we're good. All right, so let's get folks, the reason why we're here is to meet the e-Enterprise and the requirements that you're looking to meet, right, John? We got the objective is roll it up under the e-Enterprise.
Yeah, it aligns perfectly with the principles of eEnterprise. This is not to say eEnterprise has sponsored my message. I just want to make the connection for you folks that this eStudy really checks the boxes when you look at the principles of eEnterprise.
Yep. So take us out through here for the takeaways here, Daniel.
Yeah. So just, before we hop off. So remember, the eStudy platform was built basically to take advantage of these scientific methodologies that we stepped through. Number two, this is probably the most important one. Good design is going to give you good data because you cannot successfully scale bad data. It just makes the problem even worse. So make sure that you spend lots of time in design. Third, eStudy is going to promote, like John said, the principles of the eEnterprise program. So if you're interested, please contact us. We'd love to talk to you more about it. And we also welcome the opportunity to pilot the program. So if you have a need or you think you have a need, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you and see if we can find an opportunity for you to pilot the software.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. In fact, we're going to say that, hey, do you want to schedule a demo? You want to pilot? You want to look at an existing data collection need or provide feedback for the next briefing? Because this isn't going to be the last one. We want to make sure we continue to build on what you guys need and be able to deliver what you want. If you have something else, let us know. And as I mentioned earlier, you are under no obligation to purchase from any vendor on this event, including iAdvantage or eStudy. But if you do want to, you can, because they're a small business. You have a GSA contract, right, Daniel?
That's right.
Yep. And if you need a partner, if you run this through procurement, if they say, hey, we want to do this as a sole source, we want to do this as veteran-owned, whatever you want, I think you guys know a little bit about how to team up with folks to be able to get the job done, right?
That's right.
Awesome. So before we get you guys out of here, I want to make sure that everybody has access to, oops, I did a copy. You will get a copy of this presentation. You'll have the capabilities. You have a link to this session if you want to watch it or pass it on to other folks to get additional insight on how this can be beneficial for your organization. Fantastic. And then next step meetings to get together with Daniel to review stuff with John. You can even say John. You can say hi to John in person. So we appreciate you guys being here. Just letting you know what's coming. You'll have access to that. Probably tomorrow morning is when all that's going to go out. And for that, I'm just going to say, hey, thanks, guys. John, Daniel, great stuff. John, this was your first time on GovBrief, so welcome aboard.
Thank you. It was fun.
And you got to say hi to some of your old stomping ground friends. So it was great, and I appreciate your insight. Isn't it valuable, Daniel, to have somebody that understands the insides of an agency?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm always worried that I'm falling on deaf ears or I'm not speaking the lingo, and John definitely did a great job of bridging that gap. So thank you again, John, for joining us.
All right, appreciate it. And Lisa says, real trusted collaboration, engagement, and customer-focused design, a great thing by any name. Like that. Lisa, thank you very much. Anything else before we jump? All right, we're going to let you guys get out of here. Go ahead, Daniel.
No, I think that's it.
Fantastic. We're going to end that poll. Appreciate that. And if you ask for feedback and things like that, we'll make sure we get it from you. All right, guys. Great job, John. Great to see you.
See you later.
Thanks, everybody.